Hello, my name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation. It's the 30th day of September, 2025. I'm glad you're here. This is a daily exercise that I do live every morning at 5:30 a.m. Japan time to remember my life objectives and principles, those which are outlined in my book, Going Alone, which you can read for free at goingalone.org. I also use this time to think about the last 24 hours and how I did with any noteworthy challenges or opportunities that I met. I go over my notes from the day, I recite the objectives of my creed, and I prepare for the coming day. But first, let's take a quick look at the temperature and the humidity. It's 22 degrees and 70% humidity. It's going to be a little bit warmer than yesterday, which says a lot because it was pretty warm yesterday. All right, quick disclaimer information. This is a live video exercise that I do. It's by journal entry. Anyone is welcome to watch and look over my shoulder, leave comments and criticisms as you see fit, although I don't typically read or respond to any comments until I'm done. It's not that I'm necessarily mean to ignore viewers, it's just that if I read and respond to comments, then that distracts me from my thought process relative to my journal entry. So keep in mind, this is a journal entry, so as such, I have latitude to talk about anything I want for as long as I want or as little as I want, and cover any topic I like. To that end, I will most likely talk about at least one subject that might make some people uncomfortable. That subject is death, my own death. So if that kind of talk makes you uncomfortable, you've got a heads up. I am hugely grateful to my YouTube viewers, and particularly to my YouTube members and my Patreon supporters. Thank you for your support. It really means a lot. Okay, with that, let's get started. Let's look at the notes from yesterday. Yesterday was a Monday, and it was a rather straightforward day. A couple of things that happened. It was supposed to be my first full week, the start of my first full week of office hours on Discord. I completely forgot. I was supposed to pop into my Discord softypapa's office channel at 10 a.m. yesterday until 10:30, so it's really an office 30 minutes. I just completely forgot. I had something on my mind. I was meeting a gentleman coming down from the Tokyo area to visit me yesterday for coffee. His name is Steve, and I was going to meet Steve at about 11, and that was on my mind, and I don't know what was happening. I was literally available. I just forgot. So that was the subject of this morning's blog post, which I'm sure will raise some comments, because the blog post was regarding the increasing brittleness of my memory. You know, I never once in my career failed to attend a meeting due to, absent-mindedness, just simply not showing up, not once. And this is an important meeting to me, attending the Discord server office time. I was looking forward to it. Even within an hour of the meeting start time, I was thinking about it and looking forward to it. And it just swooped by, and I wasn't doing anything distracting. I was literally watching a YouTube video, which I guess in itself was distracting, about economics. So I guess that was what I was doing. I was busy doing something else. But anyway, the reason I say that the blog post will be certain to cause, is more likely to cause comments. It was one of those blog posts where I'm going over my increasing fragility of mind, talking about growing old. And that's guaranteed, just like when I talk about, my own plans for death, or especially when I talk about my own plans for, like, my own suicide eventually. That, you're probably just saying it just now, probably raise some eyebrows, right? I don't talk about it a lot, but when I do talk about that, it always brings up comments, cards and letters, I call them. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Anyway, I forgot about my office hours. Damn it! I won't forget today. But that didn't even make it into the notes, although I did talk about it. The only note that I have from yesterday was stating the fact, and I know what that's referring to. It's kind of, when I wrote it down, I didn't even need any other elaboration. So I've long had a challenge as a content creator, and particularly in my softypapa 1.0 years, when I was hiking a lot in the mountains of Japan. People watch my videos, they reach out to me, we talk, and invariably people say, you know, I'd like to come to Shizuoka and go on a hike with you, Kurt. And, you know, 19 times out of 20, 49 times out of 50, 99 times out of 100, that's just somebody talking. Every once in a while, they follow through and they do come. And it's turned into in the past, it was a problem because that meant that, you know, at one point they were one of those 99, one of those 100 people that said, you know, they would leave me a comment, they would send me a letter, they would email or whatever, and say, someday let's go for a hike in Shizuoka. And I wouldn't address it then. I wouldn't say anything. And it would come back to bite me because then a year later they would show up. No one ever just showed up. They would give me a heads up that, hey, I booked that trip to Japan. I'll be in Shizuoka the week of the whatever. Let's go for that hike. You see what happens here, right? So where this is headed. Now, I don't want to hike with anybody. I wrote a book. The title of that book is Going Alone. In fact, I remember before I even left Japan, I don't think I've really, maybe I've mentioned this once or twice in all my videos, what I'm about to tell you. I remember before I left Japan, because it was a problem, people would show up and I would have not dissuaded them from coming to see me. I mean, I don't mind anybody coming to see me, but I don't want to go hiking with anybody. And they would show up and they would want their hike. And I remember once saying, this is before I ever wrote the book, saying, someday I'm going to need to write a book called Going Alone, just so that I have an excuse to tell people so I don't have to take them on a hike. And there it is. Now, I ended up writing the book Going Alone, entitling it Going Alone for a very different reason. Although I would say that there was a little tiny part of me that remembered that comment and probably chose this title to fulfill that mission. And I used it yesterday. So, and I've become more adept in my retired life now. I'm more forthright. I don't mess around with. Okay, like for example, it's happened twice. This has happened twice since I've come back. There was a gentleman I met, a Japanese man I met, who invited me over to his house for coffee, and it turns out that he had ulterior motives. He had a business venture that he wanted to do, and he wanted me to be involved in his business venture. And he sent me home with homework, and I came home with these papers work, and came back to the house, and I was like, what kind of all this stuff? Like, what happened here? That was like 2 months into being back in Japan, pretty newly retired, and I was very decided. I was like, I don't want to be involved in this. I'm retired. I don't want a job. I don't want to be involved in this. This is my decided thing that I want to do. And so I used ChatGPT to help me to write a Dear John letter saying, thank you for having me over to your house. The coffee was great. Your business idea and venture looks great, but I'm sorry, I'm not available to be involved in this. I was kind of surprised at how forthright I was, right? I mean, it's like, maybe my fellow retirees out there will have their experience and opinion as well. I mean, I wonder, now that we have freedom as our own, that our time is our own, are you more guarding of that free time? Like, I think, like I was used to during my working years, having people come into my life, namely my bosses, and impose expectations upon me. Here, you're going to be involved in this. Here, work on this project for the next 2 years, and I acquiesce. I was kind of surprised when that happened with that man, and he kind of like, and there's no other way around it. I mean, and I was abrupt as I was, considering that he was as abrupt as he was in expecting that of me, right? If he was so bold as to invite me over for coffee with ulterior motives, and then to present me with a stack of papers to study, to join him in his business venture, then I can be so bold as to simply say, no, thank you. And I did it in a way to, I did it in a way, and this was also an interesting part of it. Excuse me while I cough for a second. I did it in a way to preclude any further discussion. I didn't do it in a way to say, well, no, I'm busy. I said, this is not what I want to do with my life at this point in my life. Right. So it was very clear. It's like this isn't open for discussion. It's not like I need a window of time or I'm busy doing something else. This is not the thing that you've given me that I looked at, that I studied, and I did help him out. He wanted a little bit of a translation, and I ran something through ChatGPT and came up with a translation for him and sent it back. He's an older gentleman who doesn't know how to use AI, but it made it very clear. No, and it's not because I'm busy. It's not because that's not a good time. This is not what I want to do, and that was the end of it. Haven't heard back from him since. It happened again last week. Someone from my past life. Gotta make sure my plants don't blow over. Someone from my past life here in Japan, who's aware that I'm back, did almost exactly the same thing last week. They reached out to me in Japanese, and I had to translate it into English to figure it out. And they had a project, and I was being enlisted into their project to help out with the translation. Just. So I just did the same thing. I just responded, so no, that's not what I want to do. Not what I want to do with my life. So, okay, and they went away. So kind of startled me that I was like so, forthright. So what happened yesterday? So again, and this is like the third time this has happened since I've come back. People reach out to me and like, let's go for a hike. And no, I don't hike with people. That's a rule. It's a rule that I don't state very often. The only exception to that is my family, because I switch my gears in my mind. When I go out with my wife and we do stuff, I'm not softypapa. I'm her husband. It's my wife and I going off. And if we do something that looks like a hike, it's not a hike. It's the thing that I do with my wife. I will hike with my daughter because I'm hoping to pass something to her and give her that experience. And it works. If you notice, if you go through my channel catalog, excuse me, if you go through my channel catalog, you'll find that. If you go through my channel catalog, you'll find a couple of videos of hiking with Emily. And when I was raising her in Japan, sorry if it's making noise while I do that. You'll find a couple of videos, and they serve their purpose. So Emily, my daughter, has since then remarked with great. She's remarked on those hikes and the impact that it's had on them. So they deliver their purpose. And I hiked once with her boyfriend, Tatsuya, and I lumped him into the family category. But I don't hike with other people. So yesterday, I was visited by another retired American, and we had coffee together. But I won't hike with people, but I will have coffee with people. I will have lunch with people. I will meet with people. I'll spend a day, but I won't take you into the mountains to go hiking. And he came to my community, and we had coffee down at Starbucks, about 5 blocks down here, within walking distance. And then after that, we had ramen next door. And during the conversation, he brought up the idea that we should go hiking together. And I startled myself by stating it in the most forthright manner I've ever had. And this has nothing to do with anybody. I don't say this because I dislike any person or that I think that it wouldn't be fun to hike with them. Well, it wouldn't be. That's what counts to everybody. I don't want to hike with anybody. I just simply said, I'm sorry, but I don't hike with people. And I jokingly said, I'm the author of Going Alone. I don't hike with people. And the reason I'm pointing this out is not to share the anecdote. I'm pointing this, and I said it reflexively, in the moment. Like he brought it up, and I said it right back. Sorry, I don't hike with people. I'm startled by how protective I am of my freedom now. And I don't feel awkward about it. And I don't hesitate to guard my freedom and protect my time and my willful utilization of my life. This is surprising because you'd think that it would have been the opposite, that when I was employed and free time was a much more scarce commodity or more scarce resource on the weekends, that I would be far more guarded then. Now that I'm retired, I'm at liberty. I'll spend an afternoon with you, with one afternoon over another. No, it's not like that at all. It's like, no way, no, something's changed, and I like it. I like it. I mean, I just say no. So that said, for anyone that wants to, happens to come to Japan and has an idea that they'd like to come say hi, please do. Please come by and say hi. We'll meet and have coffee. We'll go out and have lunch, or we'll go get drunk if you want. That would be fun too, right? So, I'm happy to do that stuff, but I just don't take people to the mountains. So, and I'll be happy to tell you where you can go to the mountains. I can tell you how to get to. I can tell people how to get, and I did last week. This is another. And someone wrote to me, and you know, and they didn't ask me to go hiking with them. I think that was their roundabout. They were angling towards that. They were asking me where they could hike in Shizuoka, and I told them the place, you can just take the train, get off the train, and you're hiking. It's great stuff. But, okay, so I'm going to give myself 5 stars on that. Not for being an asshole and saying no to people, but for being able to what principles was I utilizing in that capacity? Well, for one, here's one thing. This is really important. I have in the past taken people out into the mountains, and I don't need to go there. I'm proactively avoiding the circumstance that was. And I don't need to give any details about that. But what principles or objectives? Okay, it's hashtag good use of time. It's a good use of time. It's not a good use of time. And maybe it's a good use of time for them if I take them out, but their use of their time is their own business, right? So it's not good use of time for me. I don't want to be taking people out to the mountains. So it's a good use of time. It's a form of temperance because it's unsettling to me to take people out to the mountains. So I'm avoiding that. What is that? What is that? Oh, it's a guy. It's a guy out there. I've seen him before. He's across the river. He comes with like a Labrador, and he lets it off the leash, and the Labrador runs into the bamboo forest and then comes back out. I've only seen him twice since I lived here. Anyway, so enough of that. Let's move on from that. So I'm pleased with this development. I'm pleased with I'll just finish with this. I'm pleased with the fact that I'm more judicious, decisive, and actionable on the good use of my time in retirement. That's good. Good thing. My creed from my book, which you can read for free, like I said, at goingalone.org. Just click on the button, read the book, look for the chapter titled The Good Life, and it's all in there. My 8 objectives are to, number 1, be always ready to die. I told you I'd talk about death, to have my affairs in order, my relationship sound, and my life's work complete. Now, I did drop the suicide note there, and I don't mean to smile, and I don't mean to take this subject lightly. I mentioned it earlier, and I left that hanging there. Told that people get unsettled by my own talk of death, my own death, and my own possible plans for suicide. I think I deserve to explain that just a little bit. So I'll just make a quick note. What I mean by that, by my own suicide, is that if I do get to the point that, I'm facing down an awful death, right? A certain death, something really bad, really painful, really expensive, really awful, then I'm hoping that I will be able to find a way to take myself out in that circumstance rather than to put myself and my family through that. I've even talked about it with my daughter. So I've given her the heads up that, that I might want to cross that bridge if it comes to it, because you never know. You never know when that circumstance might come. It's probably good to have that conversation as early as possible with the person that's going to be most impacted and possibly around to I won't ask her to facilitate it, but at least I'll ask her to understand should I choose to disappear from the face of the earth, if I still have the ability to do it. That's what I meant by that. So there you go. I told you I'd talk about sensitive subjects, There you go. I got it. Back to my creed. Number 1 is to be always ready to die, to have my affairs, my relationships, and my life work in good shape, so that if I die today, or if I choose to take myself out, that I don't leave a mess behind. Number 2, or too much unfinished business. Number 2 is to make good and effective use of my time, witness everything I've been saying in the last 15 minutes. 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles and objectives like those I've cataloged and codified in my book. 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions so that I respond well when life gets hard. 5 is to perform good actions relative to my values. 6 is to recognize my true limits and my true opportunities. 7 is to do just one thing at a time and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully. And 8 is to maintain my balance. Now, I always read one objective or principle, and today I'm going to go back and read the principle titled Good Actions, Perform Good Actions, which is probably the most succinct of the objectives or principles that I've cataloged in my book. Number 5, page 250 of the hardbound edition, Perform Good Actions. My deeds should be worthy of a life spent working to pass each day as an improvement, not only for myself and my family, but also for those with whom we share life now, as well as those in the future who will receive this common inheritance. As for today, well, today's an interesting day. Some big insect just flew past. Today's an interesting day. I still can't get over this clear view whenever I take my glasses off and apprehend the world and the clouds and the light and so good to be alive. I'll reiterate, I think I told you this story before. It's a short one, but I'll retell it now very quickly to give context to what I'm going to do today. Two main things I'm going to do. One, I'm going to hold my office hours at 10 to 10:30 on Discord. The second thing I'm going to do, that means I'll be live in the softypapa's office channel for 30 minutes. The second thing I'm going to do is go pick up some statues. Before I left and went back to America, I had, in the course of being an antique dealer, I had collected 2 authentic Japanese Shinto fox statues, the Inari Kitsune. I know I talked about this because I explained this in detail in a video a couple of days ago, so I won't go on and on. Anyway, the person that I gave those to, who lives across the valley here, he's a Canadian, they didn't work out so well in his house. They're big, they're awkward, they're strange, and he's offered them back to me. So I'm going to go pick them up, and I'm going to find a home for them in my garden. Turns out I have this huge, I have this wilderness in my backyard at my disposal that I can use as my garden, and so I'm going to find a home for them out there, put them in the woods, maybe make a little shrine in the bamboo forest or something like that. Wow. Okay, so that's that for that. Let's read comments. Hello, Michael Littlejohn. Good to see you. There's Tim weighing in with the weather at 9:35 p.m. in the UK at 9.2 degrees C and 91% humidity. Very foggy morning, but changed to a lovely, cool, sunny, cool day. That sounds nice. There's Robert saying hello to everybody, including myself. Hi, Robert. Robert gives his own weather report at 77 degrees Fahrenheit, 40, very nice temperature, 40% humidity, AQI of 25. Sounds like you had a great day there, Robert. There's Julie saying, reporting crazy weather there, several storms coming through from Alaska. Tim says, deep into retirement now and trying to remember things seems to take a back seat, perhaps as it doesn't seem as important as when working That's what I keep telling myself rather than being absent-minded. So, Tim, you and others always give me such interesting perspective. I do appreciate it. So maybe what happened yesterday with the forgetfulness was less, a result of old age and more just a matter that I'm just not trained to keep track of things to do, right? Is that maybe what this is? If so, then great. Thank you. I'm glad for that feedback. Tim says hi to Robert. Crystal, hey Crystal. Giving the weather report at 17 degrees Celsius, cloudy. I'd like to meet you someday, but perhaps not a hike. I feel that's a personal space for you. Yes, thank you, Crystal. That is. Although I've never said this, I've never said it aloud, and I don't know how to reconcile this. You are, a very special person. Well, all of you here are special, but Crystal is very special because she's actually a member on YouTube. And I've long thought that if I was I want to do stuff for my members and my Patreon supporters. And I've long thought that, taking members on a hike or Patreon supporters on a hike would be due and proper appreciation for, it makes it sound like going on a hike is a big special thing. It just means that I need to overcome, you know what I mean? It's like I really appreciate you guys, and I'd like to do that. So I haven't quite figured that out, but I would tell you this, Crystal, though, that if you did come through, I have a place that we can go. Okay, and that's literally not just because, and it's literally just such a deep appreciation, right? And it wouldn't be the kind of thing that I would feel. I wouldn't feel like. I mean, I would want to do it. It's so hard to talk about this without sounding like an asshole. But I appreciate you guys being, able to listen to me talk openly about these things, right? Hi, Evelyn. Good to see you. Hope you're good. Well, hope it's well. You're well in Italy. Robert says hi to Crystal and Evelyn. Tim says hi to Evelyn. Evelyn says hiking only with Parker and other family members. That's basically it. Yeah, I kind of limit myself to family. That's it. Julie says, nice to meet someone else that prefers to hike alone. It's hard to truly experience nature when you have to concentrate on another person. Thank you, Julie. You're absolutely, you've nailed it, as so often so many of you do. I say these rather obscure things that sound strange, and then one of you will come through with a comment that illustrates the point perfectly, and Julie did. And I'll just be very, very frank with you. Hiking is like, and I'm not a religious person, as you probably know, but it's as close to a religious experience for me as I possibly can. And it's not because I feel like any mystical thing or any spiritual thing. It's that and some of you will immediately relate to this. There's this internal dialogue that goes on in my mind that's always happening. And when I'm alone in nature, that dialogue is at its most rarefied and profound, if I can use a term as heavy as profound. And if I take somebody else into the wilderness with me, it's like a petulant child that's sitting in the corner and won't speak. So it's it's literally taking someone into the wilderness with me is like asking a high school marching band to come along. Bam, 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 with the cymbals and the drums and the bam, bam, bam. As entertaining as that might be, having someone else with me and here's the thing. I'm glad that I remembered to point this out for myself and for anyone that's interested. It ruins it permanently. If I had to have the XYZ hike that I go on, because I don't hike in places where there's trails, right? The places that I go and that I do, I'm utterly alone. If I take somebody with her, that course is spoiled forever. I can't go back there. The voice inside my head is mute forever in that place. And I've spoiled 2 or 3 places in the mountains already. So when I do take people out, like when I took my daughter's boyfriend Tatsi out, I took him to one places that I'd already taken somebody because the voice had been ruined because I'd already taken someone there. I don't take anybody anyplace new. So do you see? I wonder if anyone else has that experience. It's a rather singular and interesting experience. So it's like if and this is going to sound really out there, but like if you knew, like if Moses knew, and you remember how in the Bible it says when God talks to Moses on the mountain, God made told Moses to put up signs at the bottom of the mountain telling the people to stay back. That God wouldn't talk to Moses unless Moses climbed the mountain alone. That's exactly what it's like, right? I want to keep everybody back because when I go to the mountain, it's like I feel like Moses going to the mountain, right? Not that I'm getting anything. Well, no, the thoughts that come up in the mountains up there are the most rarefied thoughts that I have. Everything, yeah, no, this book got started up there. Almost everything that I wrote happened in the wilderness of the desert that I wrote in here. So maybe I've just touched into it. Maybe the wilderness alone is where I find the muse. And so who wouldn't want to talk to your own muse, right? And why would anybody if you knew your muse would talk to you by the riverside, but only if you came alone, why would you ever take anybody there, right? I think I just uncovered it. We're going back to find where I left off. Wow, there's a lot of comments. Okay, I think where I left off was Julie said she was much more guarded with her time since I simply have less energy than before. Yes. Tim says, Kurt, setting boundaries is new to me. This is Robert, actually. But I recently set one and have stuck to it. I found doing this very empowering. Crystal says, your retirement free time was earned. It isn't for others to take advantage of. I feel like that for the small amount of free time I have off work. Yes, exactly. But back to the point about, going hiking with people, maybe what I can do, everybody, is I can set up a course where, there's a hornet right there on the bell. Do you see it? That's the Japanese giant hornet, the most dangerous animal in Japan. Dissolve your flesh if it'll sting you. Did you guys get a good look at that? This is the dangerous time of the year. September is the killing season. September and October when they'll actually attack. So that was a dangerous encounter we just had just there. But you know what I was going to say was, Crystal, maybe what I ought to do is like set up a course, like a hike. And when people come and they want to go for a hike, take them on that hike. And it's not a hike. It's like, it would be like meeting them at the coffee shop, right? I'm not expecting to meet the muse out there. I mean, all I'm doing is taking them on. I'm going to do that. This has been a very good time to talk with all of you guys. So I think I know the hike I'll take them on. It'll be the I know what I'll do. I think this is great. You guys have helped me to figure out a plan, so I can stop saying no to people. Julie says, plus, I have no interest in being someone else's worker bee anymore. Exactly. And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes, and I think a few of you out there will agree, sometimes what we're doing when we're spending time with other people is we're filling the void of their own life, right? I mean, sure, we can get together with people and have fun, but sometimes people get together just to fill each other's time, right? To make the emptiness feel a little less empty, right? I'm not interested in doing that. Claude says, you must do the Shikoku pilgrimage. You will not regret it. Have a great day. That's a nice idea, Claude, but I don't do trails, so I only go in the wilderness where there's no trails. Robert says, hello, Claude. Robert says, hello to Claude. Tim says, it's strange in retirement that it seems a lot easier to decline certain situations a lot more so more so than working. I don't know why, but as you say, perhaps more productive now of the extra free time. And thank you for chiming in that you've discovered this as well, to be the case as well, Tim. Maybe are we also more protective of it because we have a greater sense of our mortality? Maybe because we've entered, for what quite deliberately is the autumn, if not the winter of our lives, and there just isn't any time to waste. Crystal says, setting boundaries is important. I'm getting old, better as I get older. Life is too short. I think it has something to do with the function of age and experience, indeed, Crystal. Julie says, yes, you are learning quickly. It took me years to learn how to say no. Thank you all. You're all helping me to understand that this is a maturing thing, right? Tim says, it's like when my old work colleagues contact me for catch up, and sometimes now I find it kind of annoying. Like, how dare you disturb me, lol, in retirement? I don't want to chat about the working world. Evelyn says, I said in the group before that when Kay was experiencing Mother's horror show, I would stare at her and think, how am I going to avoid this? And actually came up with some ways. I know where you're leading with that, right? So Evelyn, first off, if you're not familiar, if you're new, horror show is one of the principles, for those who are not familiar, horror show is one of the principles of the book that refers to when life goes really, 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 really bad. And it's like almost something that's like it's horrifying, like when you're dealing with someone's horrible death at the end of their lives, or your own horrible death at the end of your life. And I think what Evelyn is referring to in a roundabout way was, the topic of, I know it's a sensitive topic and I know it's a triggering subject, but I warn people we might go there. The topic of suicide, right? To basically avoid our own horror show, right? So I don't know if I think that's what you were referring to, Evelyn, although you didn't see it. You didn't say it outright. It's a sensitive subject, but I think it's an important one to discuss, especially at this stage in life when it may in fact come up. And I don't want to be ambushing my daughter with the topic right at the end, should it come sooner than expected. Tim says, although I think sometimes has retirement made slightly antisocial, but I'm far more choosy now what I want to do for myself than trying to please others. Perfectly put. Perfectly put. I hear you. Thank you, everybody. I'm so glad I brought this up in my own course of discussing the day to hear your feedbacks. Evelyn says, okay, that's where I read that already. Tim says, you're a great advert for a successful cataract that I want it done myself, even though I don't need it. The surprising thing, Tim, was that of course, don't get it done if you don't need it, but how cloudy our eyes slowly can become, and you don't realize it, and it's like getting clear vision. It's like getting your house cleaner coming in and cleaning your windows that you didn't realize were as dirty as they are. Robert says, a Canadian, eh? Heh heh. Whiskey, hey Whiskey, haven't seen you for a while. Welcome back. Remind me, do you get Japanese pension? Did you contribute at all? I did contribute to the Japanese pension, but I didn't contribute enough to earn a Japanese pension. So no, I don't get a Japanese pension. Julie says, because you have to contribute up to a certain amount. Julie says, the only caveat I can make is that you really cannot judge in advance how you will feel about your situation when you become terminal, so always leave room to change your mind. Absolutely, I hear you, Julie. Always leave a room for the change of mind. Also, I may not have the courage to do it, right? I mean, that's a possibility. I like to think I can. I have it all planned out. I think I can do it, but I may not have the courage nor the wherewithal. And I may just change my mind, right? And here's a big one. Okay, here's a real big one that I didn't discuss already. I won't kill myself if I know that it would be devastating to any of my survivors, right? Like I know my wife would not. I would only be able to do that if my wife went before me. She would not tolerate me. I don't even bring it up. I just knew it would be a no-go. I will wait. I will sit in a hospital bed and suffer however much and suffer however much cost, just so that I don't put my wife through that. My daughter, though, she might be okay with this. So if my wife's gone and I have the wherewithal and I'm facing down a horrible death, I might just disappear. Oh, Whiskey just showed up in time for heavy talk, huh? Whiskey. Robert says hi to Whiskey. Tim says, yes, I think that it's rather than being particularly forgetful, I think you remember more important things when in the realm of a working life that triggers are more apparent. Yes, because they're more important, even so much so as to put down a scheduled reminder, right, that becomes habit, right? You're absolutely right, Tim. It's front and foremost in our minds because of the necessity and the importance of our work, right? Good point. It may be less about degrading mind and more about prioritization. Tim says, Robert says, that is, Kurt, I believe it is safe to say that we are all blessed to be able to engage with you each day. Thank you. I feel exactly the same way. Julie says, wow, that's really interesting. I also avoid going to my secret spots with anyone. Is it, Julie, because they're no longer our secret spots? Have you ever had the experience that, I don't know if you feel like you've got a muse, so to speak, but does whatever magic, let's just term it that way, whatever magic happens there, is it lessened by the fact that you've brought somebody there? And is it possible, if Claude is still there, that there's the reverse of that? Like Claude mentioned earlier about the Shikoku pilgrimage, which is a very famous pilgrimage on the island of Shikoku here in Japan that people flock to every year and do over and over again if they can. Is it possible that there's another form of magic that happens through a collective sense? People going to do something over and over. Like I wouldn't want to do a pilgrimage because it would be the opposite of where would find my magic, right? Maybe others find it in the company of others or in retracing other steps. Tim says, out on a long walk this morning, I was so deep in thought, I completely went off my intended route and had to backtrack. I find walking alone very, very satisfying, a real good use of time personally. See, we're all of the same tribe here, right? Robert says, Hornet was seen clearly. All right, I think that was pretty certainly the clearest view I've ever been able to provide of a hornet, and how appropriate to have it being on a Shinto shrine bell, right? Crystal says, I like those secret spots. Some places are too special to share because a part of our soul is invested somehow. We know the sacred tone of the space can only exist when it's untouched. It's not just a place to show people. It's an entire emotional journey. A designated public hike is a good idea as long as you feel up for it. Crystal, I think I want to just take what you just said right there and just say that, yep, what Crystal said. That's exactly it. Because you've helped me to see everybody here, and especially you now, Crystal, that has nothing to do with the people. When I'm telling people, no, I don't want to go on a hike, it has nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with necessarily being antisocial. It's because it interferes with whatever magic happens those places, and it seems to interfere with it perfectly. And I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a designated public hike that will not be a place that I take people where the magic happens, but the magic will be available to them, right? Because it'll be a magical place to them. It'll be no different than one of the other. I'll find a place that'll be no different than the other places I take them. It just won't be my magic place. Thank you for helping me to see that. And Crystal, if you or any of you ever come on by. I'll take you for a hike. Look, I've done a whole 180 here in the course of this 43-minute uh, soliloquy and discussion with you, all of you. Thank you for this. See, this is great. Robert says, Crystal, many of the places I share are energetic in nature, and sharing them in a way that recognizes the uniqueness of those I share them with and is supportive of their journey is not my secret. Robert, maybe you just touched on what Claude was talking about earlier. Claude was talking, sorry, Claude, what Claude was talking about earlier about sharing this Shikoku pilgrimage. Maybe you just encapsulated that value there. Robert says, my not secret place, adds. Whiskey says, mate, you're still so young. Yesterday I met a Japanese 78 years old woman who was dragging two 20-year-olds or so hosts. She was having dinner with them. Reminds me it's all in the mind. Even at 78, retirement is the start of free time and fun. I'll challenge that back, Whiskey. Yeah, what you said may be true for that 78 woman, but that's an anecdotal case study. We each decline and go down in our time, right? And so citing anecdotes like that, as true as they are, that we can't generalize that out to everybody. So, it's good for her, but it might not be the case with me. And your observation there is what I get a lot. Every time I bring it up, every time I begin to cite my own decline or my own apparent decline, in body and mind. People come back and say, "You're still young, Kurt. You're only 61 years old. I've got my great grandma Rutabaga that was, loading sacks of potatoes on the back of a tractor at 83, right?" Well, that's great grandma Rutabaga, and I appreciate the sentiment. I appreciate the well wishes. I wonder though, why people seem to be uncomfortable with my own citation of my own decline. Why is that an issue? I think I know the answer. It's an issue because it's illustrative and illuminating of the fact that the decline, we might not have as much time as we have. And a cautionary tale for objective number 2, which is the good use of time. And objective number 1, our readiness for death. Robert says, whiskey, that cougar energy is strong with her. Well, there's a sentence. Julie says, yes, exactly. The magic disappeared when I tried to share it. There you go. So I'm not being selfish and not wanting to take people to my magic spots because the magic's going to disappear, right? That's not selfish, right? I mean, if you've got a secret place that where the magic happens, let them go find their own damn secret place, right? Julie says, similar to the rule that you should never speak about an encounter with your spirit animal according to native culture. Interesting, huh? Interesting. That is very interesting. No, it's an issue because it's all in the mind. Well, it's not all in the mind, right? My arthritis is in the joints, right? My cancer that just killed my friend here, 3 weeks ago, was in the body, right? So sure, I understand what you mean by whiskey by saying it's in the mind. Mind can contribute to the overall well-being, but there are circumstances beyond that. I mean, getting in an automobile accident and dying in a car crash is not in the mind, unless you were, of the wrong mind when you were driving, right? You know what I mean? The bodies do decline. Accidents do happen. The horror show is real. Life does not go well. I know exactly what you're referring to when you're saying, at least I think I do. I think I know what you're referring to when you're saying it's all in the mind. You're saying keep a positive mental attitude. And that's why people push back when I point out that I'm in decline. But my reason for pointing this out is not because I'm holding a negative mental attitude. It's because it's the sobering reminder to not let the day be wasted. Tim says, that was a nice hornet. Not sure I would want it in the house, though. I had a devil's horse coach beetle, that's a name, in the bedroom the other day. They can bite, and they raise their tail like a scorpion. I gotta look that up. Devil's horse coach beetle. Let me write that down. Devil's horse coach beetle. It sounds like that name. There must be a story behind that name in itself. All right, everybody. I think I'll sign off. I went long today, and I got to get up to radio exercise. You know what I mean? Wishing you all the best. Thank you so much for the feedback, the back and forth, the observations, the comments, the suggestions, the reinforcement, and the guidance, helping me to better plan how I can respond to people when they say they want to hike. Basically, my new response will be, sure, we can go on a hike. I got a place right up, we can go, come on by, we'll go for a hike. And I just won't be taking them anywhere else. Robert says, whiskey, well, it's a comment towards whiskey. Shifting one's perspective is a powerful thing. Right, so you're backing up whiskey's observation that maintaining a good mental frame of mind is a powerful thing. I totally agree. I'm not pushing back on that at all. I'm just pointing out that bodies do decline. We do get old. And sometimes that happens in spite of our frame of mind. We need to look no further than the sad case of Steve Jobs' death as an example. Robert says, thank you, Kurt. Bye all. Penguin says, have a great day. Have a great day, everybody. Be safe, but not too safe. Bye-bye.